Once again, we're having an immigration subcommittee hearing that's not focusing on the crisis on the southern border. And I know that my colleagues hope that if they do not talk about President Biden's inhumane border crisis, the American people will forget that it is happening and that the Biden administration policies that created the crisis are ongoing. I know that the full committee ranking member and the subcommittee ranking member have sent at least 3 letters requesting a hearing on this topic. I join myself to those requests. I think we need to have a hearing where Secretary Mayorkas will come in and answer questions from him. I'd like to hear what he has to say. He's already testified before the House Homeland Security Committee, House Appropriations Committee, Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and the Senate Appropriations Committee. I don't think it's too much to ask for this committee to also have Secretary Mayorkas testify about the failed policies that he is initiating. Dr. Hira, thank you for being here today. Are you familiar with Executive Order 13940 entitled Aligning Federal Contracting and Hiring Practices with the Interests of American Workers?
Yes, I am.
Why was that executive order issued?
Well, it was a case of the Tennessee Valley Authority forcing their U.S. workers to train foreign replacements as a condition of severance, as well as to offshore the work abroad to cheaper labor overseas. And because the TVA workers protested and were able to speak, I think in part because they were unionized, which most IT workers are not unionized and are actually muzzled through non-disclosure agreements, non-disparagement agreements that they have to sign, it caught the attention of lawmakers from both parties.
So private companies do this all the time. TVA is not alone. In recent years, there have been many high-profile examples of companies firing American workers and replacing them with foreign labor. For example, AT&T, Disney, Southern Cal Edison, and many other companies have all reportedly engaged in this behavior. I'm sure that there are many more instances that we never even hear about. Unfortunately, in many of these instances, these companies are not violating federal immigration law. How often are American workers replaced with foreign workers, Dr. Hira?
We simply don't know the actual number. As you point out, that there have been so many reports, dozens and dozens of reports of hundreds or thousands in each case of replacements going on. But that's a tip of the iceberg of what's happened to the sector.
Is this because the foreign workers are more qualified than the
absolutely
they're replacing?
All the evidence indicates that they're less qualified. In fact, they need to be trained by the Americans that they're replacing. So the Americans clearly have more skills.
So what is the motivator to replace American workers with foreign workers?
Because it's more profitable. So the companies that are bringing in the H-1B worker can bring them in at much lower wages, and the H-1B worker has far fewer rights. They're captive to the employer, and so they can pay lower wages and give them worse working conditions than American workers.
So we've got this issue ongoing. What is your recommendation for a solution to this issue?
I think the solution is to raise standards. You raise wages significantly. The Trump administration, the previous administration had introduced a rule, the Department of Labor introduced a rule to raise the wages. I think that makes a lot of sense. There are a number of other rules that Department of Labor has moved away from. The wage rule is still on the table and has been delayed, but if they implement that, that would go a long way to taking away the profit incentive of hiring the cheaper H-1B worker.
So what is preventing USCIS from implementing the rule?
There isn't anything that's preventing either DOL or USCIS from implementing any of these rules. They've chosen not to.
Have they issued any kind of public statement, rationale for why they have made this policy decision?
They have not publicly stated why they've rescinded rules. And there are about 4 or 5 rules that we can get into the details maybe after the hearing, but they have not given any public statement for why.
Madam Chair, I realize that my time is about done.